I am Charlie Simons, broadcasting live from a great event down in Southern California, Newport Beach. As a matter of fact, if you've never been here, pretty cool area. If I had to live in LA, I still wouldn't live in LA. Anyway, I'm a NorCal guy. I have been blessed to meet Mike Morrell, who's a former senator, and he's running for the to be the chairman of the California Republican Party. I think he'd be an amazing choice, an extraordinary choice, and I hope he wins. I hope people in the Republican Party of California finally wake the hell up. Sorry for the language.
That's the first place. You got to get the people at home to wake up first
Exactly.
before you wake up the rest of the world.
And they're not.
That is a serious problem.
In this state, they're not.
That is a serious issue. It's a deep concern to me that we see a lot of California Republican consultants, establishment types. They seem to be very committed to embracing a mere economic agenda while ignoring all the cultural issues. Donald Trump, despite I think it was a strategic decision to minimize controversies at the RNC, but it seems to be that he's moving in the right direction as the president-elect. That's very important. I'm delighted to see pro-life and pro-family forces such as myself. We voted for the president. We have an expectation that we need to really restore our Judeo-Christian heritage, our Anglo-American legal tradition. We need to just restore our revolutionary legacy. But for me, especially, it's our Judeo-Christian heritage. It's our pro-family policies that need to be restored. And I am unapologetic about that. I'm not afraid to be critical. The president needs to pay attention to the needs of children, adults, parents. Every child needs a mom and a dad. We cannot ignore that. If I may just take a back step just to introduce myself to your audience.
I was just going to do that. This is Arthur Schopper, and never met him until tonight, but I'm glad I did because you and I are right up talking the same kind of speech.
Absolutely. I'd like to be able to introduce, speaking to your audience. Thank you so much again for having me. I work for a pro-family organization called Mass Resistance. We are the international pro-family group that makes the difference. We have been taking a stand against the LGBT agenda, the whole alphabet of perversions. We have been uncompromising and unapologetic in our fight against this agenda. No man is born in the wrong body. No man was born to be married to another man. No woman was born to be married to another woman. This is a fight worth fighting. We have seen a serious failure by the political establishment in this state. Not one Republican leader took a stance against Prop 3. This is a serious problem because you had every demographic in 2008 that said marriage is for one man and one woman. And now we see such an extreme with Prop 3. It now says there is a fundamental right to marry, and there are no guardrails. There's no limitations.
No, purposefully, the language is very vague.
It's purposely very vague so that you can have not just a man corrupting his body with another man, but a man could marry a child. Sure. A man could marry a sibling.
Minor attracted persons.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just another choice, isn't it? Lifestyle choice.
This is what
it's normal.
The corruption that they're pushing on everybody is you are born that way. And the culmination of this has been you look like a boy, but you were really born to be a girl or a non-binary, or choose your pick from the gender spectrum. Really, the gender corruption, confusion, mental illness spectrum.
It is mental illness.
That's what it really is. And I think that it is a foolish decision on the part of Republican operatives in this state to ignore the fight for faith and family. You can't have freedom without order, without natural law and natural right. Those are two key elements that our state, that our chairman candidate has talked about. And it is very refreshing to hear somebody talk about natural law, natural rights, the laws of nature, and nature's God. We have to restore that. I was thrilled to hear that Mr. State Senator Mike Morrell, that his son clerked for Justice Thomas, and he has been the key proponent of restoring our natural law, common law, our Anglo-American legal tradition. It is based on those fundamental values. We really have to take a stand against anything that corrupts this. There is this big interest in pushing the Republican Party to reach out to Hispanic voters, to Black voters, to Asian voters.
Which is nothing wrong with that at all.
And that's wisdom because we're all Americans, exactly. Right? And these are segments and communities in our population, in our country, that they're not afraid of white liberals, for starters. They're not afraid to speak their mind on these essential cultural issues. And third of all, and this has been my experience with the organization I work for, I have had the most support, especially from Hispanic communities. They have rallied proudly and boldly against this whole LGBT agenda. They don't want pride flags in their in their city halls. They don't want drag queens grooming their kids. They don't want sexual perversion, gender mutilation, or homosexuality pushed on their children in the schools. This is a bold...
They've removed the American flag out of classrooms and put a pride flag up there.
Yes, and we're seeing local elected officials like Mr. Komrosky, I believe his name is, in the Temecula Valley area. He took a stand against this. The teachers union rose up to recall him, but he is running again, and he is currently ahead in his reelection bid. That's the kind of courage we need to see and we need to support. The voters and the public need to stop being afraid of the name calling, and we have to stop pandering. We have to stop compromising on these issues. It is very frustrating. I was the president of a local Republican club in Los Angeles County, and the LA County GOP, the current corrupt establishment, they took the charter away. They didn't like my stance against homosexuality, transgenderism, the destruction of the family. They didn't like that. They also didn't like the fact that I proudly supported President Trump. They pulled the plug on us. This is a losing strategy. Even Ed Ring, who speaks out mostly against the corruption of the public sector unions, he has pointed out that the Republican Party running away from Trump, more importantly, Trumpism, is a bad policy. It's a bad philosophy. As Senator Mike...
And that's all I've been seeing from the chair of the current chair of the Republican Party,
correct,
who, thank God, is terming out.
And I'd like to add, Jessica Patterson takes pictures proudly with men in dresses and thinks that they're women. That is an abomination. I speak to members who were members of the Republican Women Federated. They left that organization because they allowed a man who thought he was a woman to be elected the president of the Escondido chapter of the Republican Women Federated. But our organization, Mass Resistance, we rallied, we raised hell about that, and we forced that man to resign. We cannot tolerate the corruption of sex, the corruption of family, the corruption of marriage.
That's when the Lord himself pulls the rug right out from under you.
Sodom and
Gomorrah compromise and you use that and you say, "Oh, yes, that's okay."
And I want to get back briefly to Ed Ring's point, which was we have, at the time when he wrote his essay saying that the Republican Party in California shouldn't run away from Trump and Trumpism more specifically, because we want this movement to continue long after President Trump. He's not going to be there forever. That's not his job. It is not his job to carry a movement. It's we the people. That's our responsibility to fight for faith, family, and freedom. It was at 35%. Now Trump is at 42%. That is the ballot. That's the voter range that he won in this current election. That tells us something. We need to be paying attention to that. 10 counties flipped red compared to 2020 and even 2016. It is a winning strategy to fight for our families, to fight for our moral order, to fight for our Christian heritage. We cannot run away from this. This is the boldness we need. I have taken this stance in the Bay Area. I have chased off left-wing politicians in blue areas. We have stopped mass resistance. We have stopped bad legislation like bans on reparative therapy, which is a total violation of the First Amendment. We stopped that legislation in California. We have gotten rid of pride flags. We've gotten rid of Planned Parenthood-based curricula in the schools. I really commend State Senator Morell talking about the need for education reform. We need to empower the school districts to push back on Sacramento, stop corrupting our children, stop pushing all this perverse, destructive, woke indoctrination. In fact, mass resistance, our commitment is targeting the schools and getting rid of all of it. A concern that mass resistance has is we see this piecemeal effort. Well, if my kid wants to pretend to be something he's not, at least let us know first. No, the proper response is, my son is a son, he's not a daughter. My daughter is a daughter, she's not a dog or a cat. We are not accommodating this. We don't want you to just tell us whether they're acting like this or not. They do not get to
They're not even telling the parents. So.
Exactly. It should not just be about awareness. It should be about putting a stop to all of this.
Right.
There should be no corruption. There should be no perversion. There should be no abuse taking place.
Especially the children.
That's exactly the case. And we should have a sense of opportunity with this. I spoke with a California Republican. He's an African-American in Los Angeles County, in South Los Angeles, the bluest of blue. He is a conservative. He's a constitutionalist. His niece, out of nowhere, she's like a ninth grader. So she's in high school. She's been through the public school gamut. And she said out loud, she just said, "No, I don't think it's right for a woman to be with another woman. I don't believe in people being a lesbian. And I don't think people should change their sex. And it's not right to do this stuff." This is a 15-year-old black female, okay? Because everybody goes, that's the most liberal demographic is black and female. No, we need to be looking at truth, and we need to be looking at every American as a citizen, young or old. This is a movement that can catch fire. We should not be discouraged if there are some states which have passed abortion amendments like ours that have allowed abortion up to birth. We should not be discouraged.
Including Prop 1. Never forget, we
Yep.
actually passed that.
We didn't do it. The people did it because, in part, our party did not take a stance and say
they did not. Exactly right.
And
they
that's
never
the
even
point.
talked about it. None of my own elected representatives who have an R after their name even talked about it. Prop 1. How come nobody's saying this is going to change our state Constitution?
Yeah.
It's going to amend it to say all forms of abortion are good and forever, and you can't do anything to change that. We're going to be a sanctuary state for rooting out kids from the womb.
Or if they get born, they can be mutilated because of that horrific bill that State Senator Scott, the groomer, Wiener pushed, which now allows creepy parents to take their kids to California so they can be mutilated. I don't believe we should give up. I believe that we have to recalibrate, make our case, and be bold about it. That's something that mass resistance has been committed to. And let me tell you about Miss Corinne Rankin. Rank is her last name.
She's the vice chair of the California Republican Party and is running for chair as Jessica Patterson is termed out.
Yes, and Miss Rankin, she quoted hate groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center to try to defame me and our organization. Now, you know you're doing the right thing when a hate group like the Southern Poverty Law Center attacks you.
Yeah, that's right.
And God bless
on the right track.
And God bless the RNC, because in the 2020 convention, they said, we officially repudiate the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I said to Miss Rankin, you are violating the RNC norms. Why are you quoting a hate group, which the RNC, your supervisor, has said is illegitimate and should not be quoted? She is not fit to be a chair. She is not fit to be a leader. She wants critical race theory. She wants LGBT. This is Corinne Rankin from Stockton. And I don't think she lifted a finger to help Mr. Lincoln, who is running against Josh Harder up there.
Right.
She's not a team player. I know that Senator Mike Morrell is. We also know that Miss Patterson wants somebody to be her acolyte. Either way, we don't want establishment. We don't want rhinos. We don't want Meg Whitman. We don't want Mitt Romney. We want a Donald Trump. We want Trumpism. And you know what? This is my shout out. We have to not be afraid to hold Donald Trump accountable, because it's about we the people. Mr. Trump, we don't want log cabin Republicans unless it's a log cabin built by Abraham Lincoln. You know what, Mr. Trump? Mr. Trump, we don't want men in dresses taking over women's clubs.
And the reason
we don't want that.
I don't think there should be any faction in our Republican Party that, first of all, stands for and completely supports and champions things that goes against God's law. That's the bottom line for me, is God, family, country. That's why I'm still a Republican.
Yes.
As long as we still say, yes, we're pro-life, yes, we're traditional marriage, but that club you just mentioned is not.
Absolutely. It's time to pull the plug on these. And you know what? I'm going to be talking to Senator Morrell about that. He needs to have a plan to put real clubs, enforce norms. We don't want clubs and central committees that are endorsing Democrats. Mr. Brulte did nothing about that. I confronted him about that. You and Cindy, you were both there, I believe, and saw me standing up and saying, no, this is not okay. You cannot allow Republicans to endorse Democrats. We need a state where there's real balance. I appreciate the efforts of, we have some men and women, they may have, look, we all have problems. My issue is when people promote the problems or identify with the problems. That's the issue. We cannot run away from this. We've got an excellent opportunity. There's an assembly seat in southeastern California. It looks like it's going to go Republican for the first time in 30 years. It's a Hispanic pastor who didn't run on a platform of
Wait a minute, who is that?
I don't know the name, but it's in the Imperial.
That's not Dan.
I don't know the name off the top of my head, but I think it's assembly district.
Either way, that's good news, though.
So this is a pastor, and then we got Pastor Raul Ortiz, who ran boldly on a platform of Christ and country, did not run away from Trump either. These Hispanic communities want real conservatism, and the Republican establishment is foolish to think that embracing Bay Area cultural norms is going to win over this wide swath of available voters.
Governor Hairdo says that California, and so did Biden, said that California is the model for the rest of the nation.
I can tell you it's a model for what not to do.
Exactly.
It's a model for what not to do, not where to go.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with Senator Morrell. We have an opportunity to build upon the hubris and the folly of Governor Newsom attempting to revive what little political career he has left with this special session to take on Trump. I have a feeling that the Democrats don't have anything left. They threw everything they could at Trump. They tried to kill him, lock him up, arrest him, defame him, shut him down, bankrupt him. They have failed. In fact, all of that assisted his reelection. This was a huge misfire, a huge miscalculation. And I think we need to build on that with this special session attempt by the governor.
You know what I say about people? We judge each other by how we are ourselves. In other words, if you're a very trusting person, you automatically assume everyone else is. If you're a cheating person, you automatically think everyone else is, so you're jealous all the time.
We see people as we are, not as they are.
The Democrats are this is their biggest point of weakness, is their arrogance, that everybody thinks the way they do.
Yes, or rather, they want everyone to think the way they do. They do not care how you and I think. They just want everyone to think the way they do. They are going to double down on this agenda. It is also my heartfelt hope that President Trump, you don't pardon Hunter Biden. We are not going to be pardoning people who committed crimes the past 4 years. This isn't about revenge. It's very important.
No, it isn't. It's about justice.
It's about upholding our constitutional norms. And I know it's a challenge because if you got to prosecute Hillary Clinton or Alejandro Mayorkas, you're dealing with the D.C. court. So if you can't get justice, I would say do what you can. If the jury seems to go a bad way, or if it looks like it's going to be an acquittal, find another way to mete out consequences. The other thing I'm concerned about is everybody's talking about how I want Thomas Massey to be the head of the Department of Agriculture, or I want Vivek to be the head of the Department of Urban Development and Housing. My thinking is, I don't want to know who's going to be the head of it. I want to know who's going to cut off the head. I don't want to know where you want to move the EPA.
How about we start?
Let me finish.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that you want to move the EPA out of D.C. Tell me that you're going to move it into a trash can.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Exactly.
That has to be our attitude. And I give a special thanks to social media influencers like Cat Turd, who started the No Pompeo movement. We need to do a no EPA movement. Yeah. We need to do a no extra cabinets movement. We need to do a no LGBT.
No NEA.
No NEA, no DEA, no.
All these three-letter agencies have got to go.
They really have to go, and we need to mean that now. Because if Javier Milei of Argentina can wipe everything out, we have seen if Nayib Bukele can destroy the cartels in his own country, if Governor Ron DeSantis can expel or scare off Marxist professors from his universities. Yep. Trump has examples and he has no excuses. Amen. It's time for us to remember Trump works for us. We don't work for him. He's not our king. He's our servant. He's God's servant. I do believe it. I do believe God saved him. There was a beautiful Hispanic Christian who educated me. You know, he was shot at the ear, right? The ear is where the anointing takes place. The ear, the hand, the foot, and the blood held here from the ear to the hand to the foot. So Trump, yes, God did save your life, President Trump, and I'm calling you president. Now you need to act like that and let his life flow through you and correct the corruption, clean out the corruption. Really, not just drain the swamp, but break the swamp. That's what we need. And we need you to stand up for the family. I'm glad that he wants to ban the sex mutilation of minors across 50 states. You know what? How about we ban it entirely? Adults shouldn't be changing either because it's malpractice. These doctors should be in a jail cell if they take a confused 20-year-old or a 30-year-old. It's a crime. They
swore a Hippocratic oath, do no harm.
This is a violation. We need to take a stand and say...
If people actually saw... I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Please do.
People actually said, let's just take a male wants to become a female. Do you realize, have you ever seen any video footage or a description of how they do it? And they will be on medication the rest of their lives as their body tries to repair the damage and the hole that is put where he was not created to have a hole. And it's always trying to close it up. And it's horrible. It's horrific what they do in these surgeries.
And I can't even discuss like what two men do to each other when they sleep together or what two women do to each other when they sleep together. Nobody wanted to have that discussion 10 or 20 years ago. Now, guess what? They are having those discussions with your kids.
That's right.
In classrooms without your knowledge or your permission. We have to talk about the evils that they do now so that they're not perpetrating those evils later on your kids, on your country, on your communities. We have to have this discussion. I'm not afraid if we offend some people or ruffle some feathers. You know what? Mr. Rick Grinnell does not speak for me, and President Trump needs to listen to us. This is a tough discussion, and I'm glad you're willing to let me have it. I cannot tell you how many people have cut me off. I have reached out to Republican groups here in California. And then I
had to hit him up like 5 times tonight because I kept saying, "Come be on my show, please come be on my show."
And
no, I appreciate son, preach it.
This is what we need. I've had so-called Republican groups, when they hear about mass resistance, they cut me off. No, we don't want you here because you'll offend somebody, because it sounds homophobic or transphobic. But telling the truth is not a phobia. Telling the truth is not a mental illness. And I don't hate. It's not hatred to tell the truth. It is not hatred to say, look, God created you. You were not made to be with a man. God created you. You're not made to pretend to be a woman.
Just for children alone. Just for children alone. As one pastor I talked to put it very beautifully, he said, throughout history, every world power, every government that has become a world power, what was the moment where God pulled the rug out from under them, even if they were not a Christian nation or a following nation? And that was when the homosexuality started becoming rampant.
Yep.
All right, fine. That sucks. You're going to pay for it later because you're going against my will. I'm talking, it's God talking. I'm paraphrasing. But he said the one thing that changes it for every world power was when they started jacking with kids. Mm-hmm. That's when it all comes to an end.
You could see that in Sodom and Gomorrah because it said old and young surrounded Lot's house. Young did it. Yeah. We're talking kids that had been molested, and then they want to molest. I cannot tell you how many stories of grown men who struggle with these issues. They talked about how they were molested as kids by other kids. Yeah. We cannot tolerate this. And this is my plea, and please forgive me as I'm speaking directly to your audience. I know you have homosexual gay friends. You may have trans friends.
Family.
I am not telling.
I got family.
Thank you for mentioning that, family. You are not hating them when you tell the truth.
And they know I love them.
And you are not cutting them off by telling them the truth. And this is where it starts. Remember I said we have to clean out the family first before we can clean up the public, because we talk about how the Republican Party is so weak. Right. And that has to be the same thing in our families. And that is an issue. People say, well, I have a gay uncle, I have a gay niece. Well, I'm not saying you have to throw your uncle or niece away, but you have to tell the truth and say, no, you're not born that way. I have respect for a number of bold grassroots consultants here. This is a tougher discussion, but they'll say, well, I don't really care if you're gay, what you do in private. Here's the problem. It isn't private anymore.
They're trying to make it normal. They're trying to make
it's not accepted. Private anymore. Right. We can't fall back on that lie anymore. This is a problem Ben Shapiro has. Well, I don't care what adults do in private. And you know why they say that? Because they're afraid of being called fuddy-duddies or Pharisees or reactionaries. But the truth is, the real reactionaries is the LGBT. The real fascist is the LGBT. Good point. If you don't believe me, talk to Aaron and Melissa Klein in Oregon, bakers who lost their business. There is a baker in Bakersfield, California, who is still being persecuted because she wouldn't bake a cake. This is in Bakersfield. And you've got, there was Mozilla Firefox, the CEO, when he donated money to Prop 8, he was fired just for espousing his view to protect family and marriage. This is wrong, and we have to take a stand. And we should do it in California. We've got this beautiful burgeoning Hispanic community that is not afraid of white liberals, not afraid to tell the truth. I've worked with them. They have been some of our greatest activists with mass resistance, and they have gotten great work done. I'm working with Sonia Green. We are going to start doing town halls confronting this issue, confronting the LGBT in the conservative movement. It ain't conservative. We have to say no. We can say, look, you can be an activist, you can fight for natural rights, but if you want to promote your perversion, you go join the Democrats because they are anti-natural law. We have to have this discussion. We've got to do it.
Right.
And, it's sad.
There's an opening. Tulsi Gabbard left you, so you can take her spot.
Tulsi Gabbard used to oppose same-sex marriage, and she was a Democrat in Hawaii. She opposed it. Her dad is still a state senator. He knows mass resistance. His name is Dave Gabbard or Steve Gabbard. I could be, but Gabbard obviously is the last name. And he spoke out against gay marriage.
Are you in NorCal, Northern California?
We are. Our operations, it's based in Massachusetts, mass resistance. I'm in California. We have a research director in Montana. We have an organization director who's from New York State. We work with people in Texas. We work with people around the world.
Where do we find you?
Our website is massresistance.org. Do you have my card? I was able to let you borrow it. If it's okay to share it with the camera really quick.
I don't know if it'll work.
If it'll work. There it is. You can see it. Okay. I'm giving you all my information. We want to raise heaven. We want to clean out the schools. We want to clean out the public square. There's my contact info. You can also visit our website, massresistance.org.
What a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Charlie. I appreciate it.
Man, I'm so glad you came up here. Thank you, Arthur.
Absolutely.
This is Do Not Talk. I'm Charlie Simons.